also really interested about the communist era, which is the only thing that I can say is the architecture of that era, even to my eyes, who I'm a person who's just visiting, I can tell there is something about that. Tell us a little bit about this.
Architecture of communist period.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated topic because when I start to guide the company stores, I have this kind of typical Polish approach. Like I used to use the terms communist is this, communist is that. But it's not. They didn't invent any kind of architecture. This is usually what people meant by communist architecture. This is actually modernism, and it's not wasn't any communist or Russian invention. The Pope of modernism was Mr. Le Corbusier. He was actually Swiss and did his career in France. So Mr. Le Corbusier was the actual author of the concept of machine to live. So this is actually the beginning of the functionality in the architecture. So you know there was a big hunger of basically places to live, right? And typical 19th, early 20th century tradition was that the building has to be beautifully decorated, which make it much more expensive. And also, who needs actually 3, 4 meters tall room? That's not effective. That's not functional. Actually, right? It'll just show off. So that's actually totally different approach to architecture. And initially, Mr. Le Corbusier, he put the boundaries too much. Actually, he, for example, didn't design kitchens even at some point. So because he assumed that the workers were gonna eat at work. Actually, so there were extreme. He pushed the boundaries into the different direction a little bit too much. But we see what he meant actually. What's the idea, right? The functionality, and this is something with the communists pick up. They says, okay, we're gonna do it differently. So that became the politically correct architecture, which means as many apartments as for as many people as quick as possible. But this is only after 1956, and there's nothing special at all. I mean, modernism finished in the United States in the 60s when one of the old compound was totally blow off because nobody wanted to live there because those buildings usually were ugly. That is very true, and they were like copy paste. They were the same, but they were functional. The question is, I mean, the question is, do you like to live in ugly building or don't, or you prefer to not have a home at all? Actually, there were this kind of questions. Actually, now the society is much richer. Actually, now we're picky. Actually, right? But this is actually different perspective. We start from different position.
Uh-huh.
But please remember that actually the uniqueness. So modernism is not unusual among communism at all. It was simply fully introduced, fully developed in the Eastern Bloc later than in the West. That's it. But there is some period architecture in the communist period, in the communist Eastern Bloc, which was unique. This is something what they actually didn't create it, they actually defined it. They call it socialist realism. So that's actually the Stalin era architecture. So in Poland, for example, they define socialist realism as international by its content, national by its form. It also doesn't mean anything because what that's supposed to mean national architecture, actually, right? What is the Polish national architecture? It's just a phrase, actually. It's just like, wishful thinking, basically. So the communists, they define what that's supposed to mean, the national architecture. They came to conclusion that the golden age of Poland was 16th century, which was Renaissance. So let's claim Renaissance to be a Polish national architecture. Who cares that mostly Renaissance ideas are coming from Italy over here? Who cares? It's a Polish national architecture. So socialist realism in Poland was defined as basically modernism, international, mixed with Renaissance. So if you go to Nowa Huta, this ideal model communist city, where I do the communist tours, basically some mixture of modernism and Renaissance, basically. But those are only the buildings from 1950s. Stalin finally died 53, and Stalinism was 56. The end of Stalinism was 56. So Stalinism, the period of Stalin, actually, let's say, suppressed life of Stalin of 3 years, actually, right?
Okay.
The most famous example of socialist realism in Poland will be the Palace of Science and Culture in middle of capital, in middle of wars. That's the socialist realism at his highest point. So this is very unique. This is actually what the student architecture comes from all around the world to here to see in Eastern Bloc because it never exists in the West because this mixture of historical style and modernism. But actually, post architecture post 1956 is pure modernism uh, in um, in here. It's pure modernism in Eastern Bloc. Actually, if you would like to, there is an exhibition about it. Socialist is actually such modernism architecture, socialist modernist architecture in Central Europe. So from Estonia up to Balkan. If you would like to, you could go there. I can guide you actually over there.
Is it in Krakow?
It's in Krakow. The exhibition is still the middle of January.
Temporary exhibitions. That would be amazing.
It's in the middle of January, actually, right? So some of the ideas of the modernism was actually very, very, very interesting, actually. Both the calmness and the modernist architectures are trying to change the world, actually, right? That is also one of the reasons why this modernism as the ideology in architecture was very, very smoothly picked up at some point by the communists. But they didn't invent that; they just pick it up, actually. So architecture-wise, basically, we used to complain about this architecture from the communist period, but to be honest, it seems like it's right now. It's really not bad. I mean, it's very, very livable because there were all those park design, etc. To compare with the typical capitalistic architecture, where 2 meters away from your window there's another building. Actually,
Actually, spaces.
they were designed with the spaces actually, because the cost didn't matter back then. Actually, I mean, they were building actually as many buildings as possible, but actually the space was kept over there. So there was no this invisible hand of the market pushing actually back then. So Nowa Huta, this ideal model communist city, which was built as an ideal city, is very livable right now. Some architects, fans of architecture, deliberately are moving there because they want to live. It's one of the most legendary, one of the most special places architecture-wise to live in this country.
Nowa Huta.
Nowa Huta. I mean, the old Nowa Huta, so the center.
Yeah. I've been there, and but I have to say, if if you're moving with a car from, let's say, Old Town to Kazimierz to Nowa Huta, which is what, like 30 minutes maybe by car or something?
It's about 6-7 kilometers. It depends, actually.
Yeah, more or less. I have to say that it's like you're in another city, really. Like it's
Which used to be actually. I mean, Krakow was established 1257 officially. Kazimierz, where we are, was established 1335. Klepasz, north of Krakow, was established 1366. Podgórze, 1784. And Nowa Huta, 1949. So Krakow today is a city of five. Merged together.
merged together. Makes sense, yeah, but because every region of this has its own taste, its own visually.
Well, Kazimierz lost its uniqueness because the Jewish community is not here any longer, mostly, actually. It's very small. Relatively, we talk about quarter of the city population were Jewish, actually, right? Kazimierz is actually, the identity of Kazimierz is like gentrified tourists and bars, actually. But Podgórze really has this identity still. Nowa Huta, definitely as well. Klepasz is just a suburb of the old town right now, actually. But Podgórze and Nowa Huta definitely have different identity.
Different vibe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Center of Krakow doesn't have, because center of Krakow is also an area for tourists. Nice.
Yes.
200 people only registered in the old town. Registered inhabitants.
The 200 only?
Yeah.
That's that's a very tiny number. I did not expect it to this extent.
I live in Krakow for 20 years. I have like 5,000 friends on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And I met maybe 3 people in my life who ever lived within the borders of Flanders, so in the old town.